Welcome back. We are joined now by Moulder, VP of Engineering at Cohere, one of our longtime partners in the AI space, company leading the charge in Gen AI for enterprise. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Excellent. Well, Cohere's partnership with Oracle is helping organizations build AI that's secure, scalable, and trustworthy, especially for industries where accuracy really matters. Autumn, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Autumn told me earlier it's her first time in Vegas, and she's already lost several $1,000s, so all good. So for those of us who don't know about Cohere, tell us about your mission and what sets apart the company's approach to enterprise AI.
Happy to do it. Cohere is a company that's been focused since day one on enterprise. And there's a couple areas that we care a lot about that are unique to enterprise. We care about security and we care about efficiency. How do you make sure that you can take an agent, take this generative AI solutions, and do it in a way that you're not worried about where your data goes, like you have full control over it. And then how do you do that in a way you can scale up? You've got agents that work really well, and then you want to go from 1, 2 running to thousands of them running.
Right.
And that's what Cohere is focused on.
And so when you think about that, you have many issues to contend with, obviously, right? Besides the fact that you've got your own model that you guys maintain. So what does AI look like in a day-to-day manner?
Yeah, AI is, in many ways, how do you take these systems that used to be deterministic when you think about programming? That's what traditionally we think about with software. You have deterministic software that does the same thing every time. So how do you introduce these non-deterministic models,
right,
these generative systems? And there's a lot of problems that can crop up because companies have been designed, enterprises have been designed around building deterministic software. So we're just very focused on how do you bring the pieces of the stack together to do in a secure, in a trustworthy, in a compliant way. How do you bring that capability into an enterprise? And there's tooling, and then there's capabilities and skills for the company. And so we're just very laser focused on helping companies get those capabilities into their orgs.
Well, so obviously you guys have a strong viewpoint on what that looks like, right? I hope.
We do. Yes,
I know you do. I know this. So how do when you're having a conversation with a customer, mm-hmm, where do they start? Where do you start? And what are the kind of aspects that come into these conversations that are relevant for everybody?
Yeah, when we talk to a company, and we always start with this idea of a maturity model,
okay,
and like where are you on that scale, which isn't really unique to AI. That's something that we've been doing as technologists for a long time. We say, you can be here or you can be here. Where are you? Because the tools you need, the training your company needs, the types of things you can do differ where you are. So that's stage one, is just understanding what you're doing today and where you want to go.
Okay.
But then there's also this concept of helping companies understand what are you capable of doing. If you have a system that you can run internally, and you don't have to worry about privacy, you don't have to worry about security.
Right.
From a regulatory perspective, you can meet the regulations of any location that you need to run in. If you're free from those concerns, now what would you do that maybe you couldn't do before?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. The notion of obviously keeping your data
yeah,
is very important. So it's unique, and it starts to factor into aspects like sovereign AI, which is something that we've started to hear more about. So Cohere, early on, I think we've all been fortunate that you chose to train and deploy your model on OCI. When you think about OCI, obviously we talk always about performance and scalability and security. Mm-hmm. How do you guys think about the platform and where this all goes in the future, and how do you support customer needs? That's a big question. But
yes, it is a big question. I'm glad you asked. So one of the teams that I run with in Cohere runs our supercomputers. So we've been clients as well as partners on how do we bring out AI. And we just talked about sovereign AI. One of the things that we've loved from day one with OCI is how close you keep things to the hardware.
Yeah.
It makes things like sovereign AI and saying how do we train for a model, how do we do bring the minimum set of software. We bring that into OCI, and it's very easy to do on the Oracle infrastructure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you guys have the right level of managed services for us to rely on, so that I don't have to have in organization of hundreds and hundreds of infrastructure engineers, I can lean on OCI to do a lot of that.
That's a very interesting point about having the minimum set is that's kind of counter to the old school, right? Where we wrote code endlessly and just kind of left it there and hoped for the best as time went on. So one of the other things that you guys spend a lot of time on, I know, is just flexibility and deployment. And so is that it's called a company-driven requirement, or did this come from customers as well?
Yes, I would say it was primarily company-driven at first, because we very much saw the writing on the wall, if you will, around this need for sovereign AI, for the ability to deploy in many locations. And we've seen like more and more customers say, hey, sometimes I can't move all of my data. There's reasons it needs to live in a particular location. But to simplify the adoption process, I want the same set of tools in every location, so that instead of having to think about how I'm going to deploy an agent, I can do it in the same way. That's what really drove our focus on, say, take the same set of software, the minimum set of things you need, and deploy it everywhere, and then allow your company to focus on the higher order problems, not how am I going to get things running in different locations. Yeah,
that's a very interesting point. I mean, similarly, when you think about that deployment models, data security, obviously a big part of it. So I know that you've seen a lot of industries that are sort of, I don't want to say embracing it more than others, but perhaps it's top of mind for certain industries. And so are there different ways that you're seeing customers kind of solve that problem?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of it comes back to your security teams, the controls you already have in place, because nobody wants to redo work that they've already done. They want to say, hey, I have a set of controls. I know how to govern. I know how to monitor and detect problems if I leave my information in this one location. So every company is a little unique in that. And so being able to bring our software to those clients, that's partially where it's made that adoption easier. Because we're bringing the software to them, they can situate the software and these capabilities in a system that's already controlled, already governed, and you don't have to rebuild those controls. You can just kind of add on agentic capabilities wherever you are.
Yeah, you're making life easier for them. So, all right. So for teams that are just starting out, which are many, right?
Which are many,
and we keep telling them, just do it. Try them all.
Dip your toe in the water. It's warm.
Yeah, exactly. How do you think about getting from experimentation to production?
This is an area we focus so hard because we see so many companies get stuck in experimentation, and they just spend all of their time and energy trying things out, and then at the end just say, we're done. There wasn't anything useful in that. So one of the pieces of advice is, do it with a partner, somebody who's done it before and seen other things, because they can help you move faster. It's one of the reasons why we don't just bring software, we bring forward deploy engineers to our clients. And then the other piece is just focus on the first two use cases and get something all the way through.
Amazing advice. Autumn, thank you. Thanks to Cohere for being such a great partner. We look forward to seeing you further here at AI Worlds.
Thank you.
Thanks.